Hello, everybody. It is Monday, December 23rd. My name is Justin Ayers, and you are listening to the Bell Lap podcast, where we talk about all things Grand Slam track. This is episode number 3, so make sure you hit subscribe or that follow button if you're listening to us on YouTube or Spotify. It is 2 days away from Christmas, so we hope that you guys have a very happy holiday week, happy new year, take some time to relax and spend time with family and just enjoy your holidays. There was some big news out of Grand Slam track this week. They announced their last 5 athletes who will be running in all 4 meets next year. I think they were trying to get them all solidified as they headed into 2025 so they could start working on their challengers. But running through the list real fast, you have Zarnell Hughes from Great Britain. He was a part of their 4x100 meter bronze medal relay, and he's going to be joining the short sprints group. You have Brittany Brown, who is an American. She is going to join the women's short sprints. She was most notably in that 200-meter final with Gabby Thomas, and she was the bronze medalist in that race. You have Deribe Wilelji from Ethiopia. She's in the women's short distance group. She got the silver medal last year in the 1500 at the World Championships and finished 4th this year. So she adds some real firepower to that short distance staff. But Caleb Dean from the U.S., he's the NCAA 60 and 400 meter hurdle champ. And I think I saw on the Grand Slam track page that he's the first person to ever pull this double off. He is also the one who, quote, shot his shot and sent DMs to Grand Slam track and some of their administrators trying to get into it. And they were like, sure, we need another hurdler. So he is going to be in the long hurdles group. And then lastly, you have Freddie Crittenden from the U.S. joining the short hurdles group. He most notably was 6th in the 100-meter hurdle final that was won by Grant Holloway this year at the Olympics. So rounded it out with 5 more solid athletes. My general thoughts on the roster of 48, I think the more I go through each individual, the more impressed I am with the roster. I think that over 2/3 of the athletes in Grand Slam track have won an Olympic medal or a world championship medal within the last couple years, 3 years. So the top level talent is definitely there. I think for league success, it would be nice to have another star. I think that they're really looking to garner this in the challenger spot. One of the other notes I had on here for like recent league news is Keely Hodgkins out of Great Britain, who I think is their 800-meter gold medalist. She told Yahoo that she intends to race in one of the Grand Slam track races. She just didn't think it lined up best for her to do all 4. So hopefully we get more of that out of the athletes. Maybe, for instance, you get Noah Lyles, who's like, I'm just going to pick up a quick $100,000, run for 9.5 seconds, and then move on with my life. And he hops into one of these Grand Slam track races. Or like I talked about Bull last week when I was talking about long hurdles, I think that that's something that might be more cohesive to them. But some other most notable things about this Grand Slam track lineup is that there is an American in every single event group. So no matter what's happening on the track, whether it's short sprints or long distance, there is going to be an American competing. I think that's just good for the branding of the league. And I mentioned in my first episode that I just think it's really important for the U.S. to develop their own professional track league. I think that there's just something about having an audience here with just the high participation we have in track and field and just the general success that we have at the Olympics every year. We are one of the most competitive track and field countries in the world, and the medals show. And it's not just one event either. They're getting medals from the 100 all the way to the 10K and beyond, honestly. If you look at the marathoners too, we've got a few U.S. marathoners that are competitive too. So just running is a big deal in the U.S. And so having those Americans to cheer on, I think will help get a lot of people invested. But notes from me, the host. I've been really looking at this, and I kind of want to try and put together a fantasy track league. I've been really going back and forth with some people about the best way to do this. Maybe the way that I can get the most people involved, try and get some more commitment to, or not commitment, but you just think about fantasy football, and people watch the fantasy football because they have their fantasy football players in it sometimes. I know that's when I started. I really got into the NFL because I was so into fantasy football and tracking the stats and the points. And so just been thinking about how to do that for Grand Slam track. I've got some general ideas, like a DFS or a best ball style system might make sense to just either pick a player for the full year or do a salary budget based on everybody in the league and you make your own team. I don't know. If anybody's got ideas, I'm open to hearing them. So if you want to send those my way, that's awesome. But I think it'll be something fun to help people just get invested into Grand Slam track. But today, our main topic that we are going to be talking about on the Bell Lap podcast, where we talk about Grand Slam track, is we're going to be talking about the men's distance group. This group is going to be running the 3K and the 5K. This group consists of Grant Fisher, Luis Grijalva, this is the name that I just can't figure out, but it's Hagos Gebrhiwet and Ronald Kwemoi, who, shout out to Ronald Kwemoi, he followed us back on Instagram, so at this moment I think he's my favorite athlete in all of Grand Slam track. But we're going to start at the top with the American Grant Fisher. So Grant Fisher, he is from the U.S. He is 27 years old. He actually grew up in Canada, but then moved to Michigan at a young age. But his big accolades, he is kind of the guy when it comes to American distance running. He's got the American record in the 3K, 2-mile, 5K, and 10K. His notable finishes over the last 3 years: he was 9th at the 5K in 2021, 5th at the Olympic 5K, 5th at the Olympic 10K in 2021. He came back to the World Championships in 23. He got 4th in the 10K, 6th in the 5K, and then he pulled off probably one of the greatest doubles in American distance running history this year at the Olympics, and famously he got bronze in both the 5 and the 10K. His PRs in the Grand Slam events, he got a 7:25 in the 3K, which is the American record. He did that back in 2023. And then for the 5K, he has ran a 12:46, which he did back in 2022. Something you're going to notice about all of these 5K runners is their PRs are not super far apart. This is a very competitive group, and especially the 3K PRs. I think I'm looking through this, and they're all within about 5 seconds. I think the fastest is 7:25, which is Grant Fisher, and I think the slowest is 7:30. So that is going to be a very competitive race. The 5K PRs are a little more broad. 5K is a lot different of a race to run, in my opinion, though, than the 3K, where a good day, like a 13 flat, could have been like a 12:30 on a good day, whereas on a bad day, that just lines up in a completely different way with the times. So background on Grant Fisher: grew up in Canada, was actually born in Calgary, moved to the U.S. He was a big soccer player growing up, and so he was one of those in high school that did both soccer and cross country, but he actually missed his state cross country meet one year to go play in a big soccer game. So he did make the World Youth Championships in 2013 in the 1500. He completed the Foot Locker circuit, and he actually won Foot Locker Nationals twice. The success that he had at a young age helped him go run at Stanford University. At Stanford, he was a 12-time All-American, and he did end up winning the NCAA championship in the 5K. After he graduated in 2019, he moved on to the trials in that 2021 year when they were all trying to go to Tokyo. And he had some high finishes, ended up going to the Olympics and then finished top 10 in both the 5K and 10K. And then he actually got injured in 2023. I think this was something that left to a lot of soul searching. He didn't get to go to the World Championships, missed out on a big opportunity there. He ended up leaving his pro team, so he was a member of Bowerman, and he kind of went back down to the basics, re-examined his training, and then was able to build back up following the injury he had and made a run all the way to the Olympics. And so something when you listen to Grant Fisher talk about Grand Slam track, he was one of the ones who also has done an interview with Citius Mag. He's very excited for the competition. I think he's reached a point where he doesn't really care about times. I think he's not going to say he's content with the American records, but he did make a comment where if he just didn't run a faster 5K, that's fine with him. But what is a bigger deal to him is getting on top and getting a gold or changing those bronze medals at least into silvers. And if you look kind of back at his career, there's been a lot of high finishes, but outside of like American competition, he's never really been that guy. He's never really bumped to the top. And I think that that's something with Grand Slam track that he really wants to try and do, is to find a way to elevate himself so that he can make that jump into that next tier, make that jump into where he can become the greatest in the world. And he just needs some more competition to push him there, because I don't know if he's going to get what he needs in the U.S. He's going to have to branch out to find people who can push him and make him a more just fully sound competitive racer. And when you listen to these other athletes talk, they're kind of in the same boat. They're ready to compete. They're not ready to go out, and I don't think any of them are interested in shattering any 5K records as much as they might like to. They want to all get experience to go head-to-head and to be ready for their next world championship or international competition. I'm going to move on. I guess I was going to say more, but I think there's a lot to evaluate about this group as a whole rather than as an individual. But I think for Grant Fisher, he's got to figure out a way to get on top. And I think Grand Slam track is his avenue that he's going to work on doing that. I also think that this style that Grand Slam track has for somebody like Grant Fisher is huge, because he is a doubler, and his ability to double has been successfully noted in the past, and that could be a way that he is able to really make some inways against this group, because he's got that experience coming back in long distance events, which are just way more different to double in than like a sprint or even like a mid-distance event. So moving on, we're going to talk about 25-year-old Guatemalan Luis Grijalva. He is going to be joining this group. His accolades in 2021, he got 5th in the Olympic 5K. He did some Diamond League competitions, so this is another one who is participated in the Diamond League that's kind of not defecting, but moving back over to the Grand Slam track competition. But got 6th at the Sweden Diamond League in 2022. Ended up in 4th at the World Championships in 2022, which was kind of his first huge moment. Yes, he had the Olympics, which was great, but when he got 4th and finished in the top 5, I think that was one of his, like, I'm here, I'm one of the best in the world statuses. And so then his next international competition, he got 3rd at the Italy Diamond League, and this was the first time he ever broke 13. He then went back, got 4th at the World Championships again in 2023, and then he actually got injured right before the Olympics this year, and he went ahead and went into the Olympics and competed, but it was clear that he just was not his usual self. And so where people were kind of expecting at least a top 10 finish, if not contesting for one of the medals, he only got 16th, and he just didn't make it out of semis because his legs were so beat up. But his PRs, he got a 7:29 3K in 2023, and he's got a 12th, that 50, which he ran at that Diamond League back in 2023. And so full story on him. He's kind of a popular, or I guess, notorious athlete. People know about him because there was a huge controversy, or not controversy, but it was really a big story when he was going to compete in the Olympics, because he is an immigrant in the United States. So he was born in Guatemala, and he immigrated to New York at the age of 1, ended up growing up in California, and he qualified for the Tokyo Games, but he had a DACA status, and so there was a chance that if he went overseas to compete in Tokyo, that he would be denied re-entry into the United States. And so it became this whole big deal, and they were doing stories about it, and the U.S. Immigration Services eventually gave him a special permission and gave him a special status that basically is like, because he is such an exemplary athlete, he's going to be able to be guaranteed re-entry into the country. But he then did go over to Tokyo and competed very well. But he has been for much of his life a successful distance runner here in the United States. And so he was very successful with running, and it was pretty clear for him at a young age. And he was one of those PE kids that just would run and run and run. He ended up winning the California State Championship in 2016, his senior year, and then doubled that up with a mile or 1,600 meter championship his spring year of that senior year too in 2017. And so this obviously got a lot of collegiate attention, and then he was able to sign with NAU, and he got to be part of that team that went on to win the 3 national titles and go on this huge dominance run against the rest of NCAA cross country. I remember watching those races, and NAU just, man, they were dominant coming in with all of those fantastic finishes. But he goes to Tokyo Games, finishes high, and then from there he establishes himself on an international field, and he sets the Guatemalan record, solidifies his Olympic finishes, just to show that he really is that guy. And so I think the story, looking at Luis Grijalva, is he back? I think that the injury is going to be something that we have to keep an eye on, because he was this just great distance runner, and he came out to that Olympics and he was clearly beat down and beat up. And so what happens next? What's the recovery look like? Is he able to get back to that stage? I think that he is excited to have all of these competitors around him, because realistically, if say he was 4th at the World Championships, you go and he could have been 4th maybe at the last Olympics, then he's right in the mix with all of these other guys that he's going to be competing with. And he's just, is he back? Is he healthy? Can he compete with them still on a national level? I'm going to guess yes. He's only 25. He's young. And I think when you run a sub 13 at that young and you still have many years to improve, an injury is not going to bother him. I don't think it bothered Grant Fisher that much when he battled injury before coming to the 2024 Olympics. And I think Luis Grijalva is on a very similar trajectory. So moving on, so that's the first two. We're going to go down to Hagos Gebrhiwet, and he is 30-year-old Ethiopian. He is the veteran of this group. He started at a very young age, and so he's been competing internationally for about 13 years, I think. I think I read that he competed in his first Youth Worlds event when he was 17. Yes, I think that's it. And so his accolades, he was in the London Olympics back in 2012, got 11th in the 5K. 2013, he was the world cross-country champion. 2013 silver world championship medal in the 5K. 2015 bronze world championship medal in the 5K. 2016 is his highest Olympic finish, gets bronze in the 5K. 2019, eighth at the World Championships 10K. In 2023, then there is a little hiatus there, I'll mention, but he gets sixth at the World Championships in the 5K. And then in the past year, he got gold in the 5K at the African Games, and then took that to the Olympics, and he gets top 5, missing the medal stand by just a few seconds. And so Grand Slam event PRs, he runs 7:30 in the 3K, which he did that back in 2013. So it's been a while since he's competed competitively in a 3K. However, he just set the second fastest 5K on the track of all time back in 2024. I think that was at a Diamond League competition. And he ran at 12:36. Absolutely blew people's minds that he was able to still run that fast. And so, background, he's born in Ethiopia. He takes up running seriously at 16, and it didn't take long for them to notice him. He got a spot at their national championship, competed well. They sent him to the World Youth Championships, where he finishes very high. He then starts competing internationally at a very young age, hits the Olympics, I think at the age of 18. So very young, and he's been doing this for a long time. The big thing when you look at the story of Gebrhiwet is back in 2019 to 2023, he was injured and he wasn't really able to do much running, and he had to take time off and couldn't compete anymore. There was actually, though, political unrest that he cited, which prevented him from leaving the country to get treatment that he needed. So he had to take a very, very long road to come back. And I think that's a credit to the discipline and determination that he has, is he went from 2019 to 2023 without any international competition. Yes, COVID falls in there, but there were still races. I mean, you still have the Olympics, trials that he could have competed at, and he had to take time off and do a full recovery, breaking it basically down to the basics and building back up. And I think it's so incredible that he was able to do that, win the bronze, take such a break and rebuild, and come back to finish in the top 5 at the Olympics. And also, I mean, a 12:36. I mean, it's just crazy. And his Olympic 5K, if you go back to that race, you have him, Fisher, and Kwemoi all trailing, not yet. You have all of them in this pack, and with about 400 to go, Gebrhiwet just takes off. And if you look at his races, he does this. He picks a spot in each race where he decides, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to try and just hit the gas and hang on, and that's how I'm going to win. And he just hits the gas and just soars to the front of this race and strings the entire thing out. And if he'd done that, I think a little later, he probably is the gold medalist, or at least the silver medalist, because Ingebrigtsen was tracking pretty much every move and had the sprint left. But it turned into a kick between him and Kwemoi and Fisher, and they did end up with the medals and he did not. But it was a very close finish. And I mean, that's a simple matter of just, was it a little too soon? Did he run out of gas for that final 50 meters where the medal standings are really decided? He could be the best in this group. His times show it, but can he compete and beat them? Something worth noting is he has beaten Ingebrigtsen before, and that's not something that all of these athletes can say. And so he has the competitive experience and knows how to be the best in the world. It's just a matter of, can he do it now? He's probably reaching some of the ends of at least his track competitive career. He's probably, if he wants, could move up to the half or the full marathon and be very successful. But he's branched now out to the distance events, and you wonder at the age of 30, the next Olympics, could it be his last? Is that his last chance at a medal? And getting just more competitive experience, especially when speed isn't always there, you're able to use some of your experience and out-tactic and out-race other people. And I think that's a little more of what he's going to be able to get from Grand Slam track this year. But I think that he could be the best in this group. He's just got to show it. And so I think that's going to be his big thing, is can he get the job done? Because he's got the fast times. I think he will walk up to that starting line with a confidence that maybe none of the other athletes have, because he knows he can do in a 5K what none of them have touched. I don't think any of them have even been under 1240. I'm checking this just to be sure. Fisher's 46. Yeah, none of the others have even been under 12:45. So he can put 10 seconds on these guys. Now, that's not to say they can't match it, but he's got to be ready in the 5K to really push the pace and make these guys earn it. In the 3K, I am a little more hesitant because he's gone so long without racing a competitive 3K, and not that they're super different, but I mean, it is a faster pace that he's going to have to maintain. And the first couple races that he runs could cause him to have a readjustment and have to get reacclimated to things, especially when Fisher does regularly race 3Ks, and so does Kwemoi. And I think so does Grijalva. They all pretty much regularly have a 3K in their repertoire. Moving on to Kwemoi, who is the last competitor in this group. He's 29 years old, from Kenya. He is the most recent Olympic silver medalist. So at the Olympics this past summer, he is the highest finisher that has been retained for the Grand Slam track roster in the 5K. Back in 2019, he was 7th at World Championships in the 1500, which I think is where he fell. No, never mind. He had a fall in a race, but that wasn't there. 2017, more accolades. He was 14th at World Championships in the 15, and then this is where he fell. He fell back in 2016 in the Olympic 1500. He was in the final, and that was a final that really went out super slow. Everybody was, I think they came through the first 400 at like 68, and it was a sit and kick race, and Kwemoi is fast. He has got a lot of speed. I'd say as a foot speed metric, he's probably the fastest in this group of 5K runners. I think that he can out-sprint pretty much any of them, and so that was what was devastating back in 2016, is he probably had a chance to end up on the medal stand because of how that race played out. It played out exactly to his strengths. He sat late, but then he got tripped up and had to use so much energy to sprint back up. And so he's got a super awesome story. He was forced to drop out of school around the age of 14, and he just was like, I guess I'm going to start running, and I'm going to be so good at it. And so he was able to get into the 2013 cross-country championships at Kenya and absolutely upset the field, won the whole thing, gave him a spot on the youth international team. Then he goes to the World Cross-Country Championships and finishes in the top 10 and earns the team a silver medal, or helps the team earn a silver medal. He goes, and he's been primarily a 1,500-meter runner throughout his whole career, and somewhere in there something just clicked where he was like, I've got the speed and the endurance is there too, and I've got to make a move up to the 5K. And so he makes the jump, goes to the Kenyan trials this year and wins the whole thing, goes to the Olympics, and he walked in the Olympics. I think people knew that, hey, there's this Kenyan Kwemoi. He's really good. He is a contender, but also I don't know if they took him completely seriously when they're looking at Ingebrigtsen and Grant Fisher and some of these other guys. Like, I don't know if they actually really thought that he was going to do what he did. And he walked in and he was like, hey, my Kenyan family out there, I'm going to win a gold medal. He says that. And man, I think that, yes, he didn't win, but silver is pretty dang amazing. And so his Grand Slam event PRs, 7:28 in the 3K and 13:02 in the 5K. The thing about, I think, Kwemoi now that he's made this jump to the 5K and that he is now established himself as one of the top dogs in an international level is he ready to go out there and be the one with the target on his back? I think he is, especially in this group, who is very similar. So I don't think that there's anybody in this group who's going to look at Kwemoi and be like, oh, he's that guy I have to take down, because there's such a pretty much even parity among these four guys. However, he's got the silver medal, and that's something none of the other runners in this group have. There are a few bronzes, but none of them have been able to finish in the top two. And so he has got to shift his mindset now from I'm the guy who's the underdog who's going to surprise people to now people are kind of going to have to come and surprise me. And I think he's battled through so much adversity that this mentality is going to be fine. I don't worry about his mental competitiveness at all. It's just going to be, he's got to be ready to race a tactical race where people are looking at him a little more and thinking he is one of the guys that we're going to take down. He's got a kick at the end, which is a huge advantage. He is pretty tall and has really long legs, and so his foot speed and turnover is really, really good, and he's got that 1,500 experience, which should benefit him if the race is close. The thing is, if Hagos Gebrhiwet is going to go out and take this thing out at a 12:15 or 12:30 pace to try and break the other athletes, how's Kwemoi going to hang on? Those two, in my opinion, are kind of foils. They're going to race very differently. I think they have different strengths. Where Hagos in the final was the one who sprinted. Well, he got out-kicked by Kwemoi. Whereas that pace was not anything crazy that it got taken out at, and Kwemoi was able to hang on. And so if it goes out at blazing pace, Kwemoi's got to be ready to match any move that the others bring. So this group is missing a big notable runner, and that's Jakob Ingebrigtsen. He is probably one of the most famous track athletes around the world, and he is the gold medalist in the 5K. He also is a very competitive 1,500-meter runner and has that rivalry with Josh Kerr. So a lot of people have some conjecture about what Ingebrigtsen would have done even if he did join, but he, now that the roster is out, has not joined. But Ingebrigtsen's accolades, he got gold in the 5K in 2024 Olympics, the 2023 World Championships, and at the 2022 World Championships. He is the 2020 Olympic gold medalist in the 1,500, then got silver in 2022 and 2023. But he did miss that in that huge 1,500-meter final. He did miss the podium. But yeah, that's he's huge. And he's one that I hope could hop into a Grand Slam track meet. But I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about him and Femke Bol, and kind of comparing and contrasting them. And Bol has something to gain if she runs in Grand Slam track. She could take another shot at McLaughlin, and if she is able to knock McLaughlin down in the 400 hurdles, that's huge for her name. Whereas Ingebrigtsen, he's the guy that they will all be chasing. I mean, I had just said, is Kwemoi ready to be that guy? Well, Ingebrigtsen is that guy. He is the one who would be the front runner that everybody would know is in that race. And he won that 5K in sweeping fashion. And he's been very dominant in everything he does. and he's a cross-country champion, and he is just a pure distance runner. I think that's why the 1500 appeals to him so much, is because he knows the 5K is not as big of a challenge for him or the 1500 is not as big of a challenge for him as something like the 5K. But other notables, Joshua Cheptegei, the 2024 10K gold medalist, who also got gold at Worlds in 2023 in the 10K. He was notable. Granted, he focuses more on the 10K, so it's not completely a surprise that he chose not to run. But he was another big name that could have been brought in. You also have Barihu Argawa, who is the 5K and 10K record holder, who got silver in the 10K. I think some names that have a little more of a popularity spin, even though they may not be as competitive as some of these other runners. Yomif Jelcha, Graham Blanks, the young Harvard two-time national championship cross-country, Nico Young. Those are some names that I think would have been fun, probably would have given them more popularity, but I don't also know if they're ready yet to compete with these guys seriously multiple times a year. They might be challengers who we see hop in a couple of these races, but I just don't see them actually competing really with any of these four when it comes down to it. So initial rankings, I really struggled with this group because everybody is so similar. I think it was easiest to go from the bottom up. And the thing is, like, this group could really make me eat my words because I don't really think that there is a front runner. I think that this could be if one of them is able to take control of any of these races, I think that they're going to be very solid and could win at any time. And so this group, if I had to price them out, would be all within a couple $100 if we were doing like a DFS lineup. And so in fourth, though, I think that Grijalva is probably the outsider, the one that I think probably has the hardest road if they're going to compete. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were fourth. These next three, man, I really didn't know kind of how I wanted to go with it, because I didn't want to just go with the Olympic chalk lines, even though that's kind of where I was starting to settle. But I think that I had Grant Fisher in third. I just haven't seen the wins on an international level, and I think that that's one thing that's going to have to happen if he really wants to be a serious competitor in Grand Slam track with these four. Gebrhiwet, I had in second. I think that after he's ran these 5Ks, and I mean, he was so close in that 5K in the Olympics to gold. I really think that he was a tactical error away. I think he probably is the best 5Ker, but the 3K is going to bring him down. And so lastly, in first, then I had Kwemoi. I just think that he is still new to the distance of 5K and 3K, and I see that as a benefit because I actually think he is going to really cut down some of those times that he has and really learn how to be a tactical masterclass in these two events. So that's my ranking: Grijalva, Fisher, Gebrhiwet, and Kwemoi. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear all the reasons that I am completely wrong about this list, because this is not, I felt like the 400 hurdles girls, or the women's 400 hurdles, was a lot more kind of cut and dry for the most part. This could be so interchangeable. But again, this was the Bell Lap Podcast. Again, make sure you hit that subscribe or follow us. Thank you so much for listening. It is so appreciated. We hope you guys have a wonderful Christmas, New Year, holiday, all of it. And we hope you guys stop by next week. Have a great one.